Hey, you're watching Driver 88. So what in God's name is happening to Jaguar cars at the moment? This is a brand that I don't really need to explain to you how significant it is to the motoring world. From the racetrack to iconic road cars, it's something that has in many people's hearts and also has been, I guess, an aspiring car for many people to own over the last 100 years. Somehow, today, on its current catalogue, there is not a single car which isn't either recently finished production, finishing production very soon, or finishing production in 2025. All of the SUV models, like the I, E, and F Pace, have pretty much been discontinued. All of the saloon cars, the XJ was discontinued a few years ago. The XE is now finished this year. The XF, I think, is finished pretty soon. And the now kind of iconic F-Type sports car also has had its final edition and is being discontinued this year. So I have no idea where this brand is going or what is going on, but it is quite a dire state from the outside looking in. I don't know what models are coming yet, but all I know is that on this channel, I like to review and drive as many cars as possible. In the last few years, I've really enjoyed the F-Pace SVR. I've enjoyed a number of different F-Type models, but what I've never driven was Jaguar's attempt, and sadly, failure, at competing with the 3 Series and C-Class Mercedes, and that is the XE, the mid-size, I guess, saloon car, or small-size saloon car, which had a number of models and culminated in the insane V8 supercharged model at the end. But I've looked at a few cars and I've decided to go down to see my friends at Lorbek Luxury Cars, who have 2 XE models currently. Both of them are sitting at less than half the, say, $110,000, $120,000 retail price that they sat at almost 10 years ago. And they both have a very interesting engine that you won't find in many other brands. The 3-litre Supercharged V6, which sounds fantastic. And I also want to try this thing. So let's head on down there now and see if it's worth potentially buying for yourself. So the interior of the XE S Supercharged V6, well, it certainly sounds quite decent. Oh, I tell you, I'm not a fan of a shiny leather steering wheel with 90,000 Ks on it, but that's something that can easily be fixed, of course. Now, let's compare this to, say, a 204, 205 C-Class, an F80 BMW. How would you compare it? Another thing I'm not a big fan of course, is the black, piano black that kind of looks dusty quite easily and gets scratched. But the materials in here, I guess the front dash feels relatively nice, being leather. All of your touch points and buttons, I mean, they don't exactly feel premium, but they don't feel cheap either. We've got a Meridian sound system. We've got our paddles here connected to our 8-speed ZF gearbox. And I think the highlight for this car really is going to be that supercharged V6. Let's jump in the back and see if there's much room there. These seats, they give you a decent amount of side support. They're relatively soft with the Alcantara, which is kind of keeping me in place. Otherwise, relatively nondescript here in the interior for the Jag XE. All right, the back of the XE. I'll tell you, I'm not a big fan of back here. It feels not the most premium, I'll be honest. We've got a large transmission tunnel which is taking up a lot of room. We have kind of some plasticky feel back here, and you know what, I'm not a massive stickler for the sound of what a door makes when it closes, but it does just feel a little bit cheap when I close these rear doors. And we do have a sunroof, but my head is hitting the roof. You won't be able to see, but my head is hitting the roof and I'm only 5'10" and a half. And so it's not particularly comfortable Yeah, back here, a little bit disappointing for the rear seats of the XE Jag, unfortunately. This is what I'm talking about. It just doesn't feel very premium. So we have a Jaguar sourced, not Ford sourced, as far as I can tell, 3-litre supercharged V6. This car, I've just realized, has some sort of intake and exhaust, and I'm assuming also then has a tune. Now, stock power is 335 horsepower, 450 newton meters, 0 to 100 from this rear-wheel drive car in 4.9 seconds. I'm assuming that this thing is faster than that if you can get the rears to hook up. So let's take this thing for a drive. I'll be honest, I've kind of low expectations after sitting in this thing, but I'm keen to hear this V6 supercharged sound because I know they sound amazing from the F-types that I've driven in the past. So, my first time driving an XE, and this one has, as we've just realized, quite the fruity exhaust. The V6 supercharged Jag engine sounds already quite nice already, but this thing is really another level. It's made to a venerable, of course, 8-speed ZF gearbox, and from my initial driving, even in dynamic mode, I think I could tell you this. The 8-speed ZF gearbox has come a long way in the last 10 years. It's used in almost everything, but in 2015 it wasn't as, I guess, entertaining to drive as it is today. We've got paddle shifts, of course, and I think I just want to get a bit of a feel for how this car goes about its business. One thing that's kind of been brought to my attention in having a look around this interior and touching everything is it doesn't feel too premium. Not as premium as I think a C-Class or a 3 Series was even in 2015. I think if you're looking at one of these cars for 60% off the retail price in a used example like this, your sole, I guess, reason for doing so is going to be this V6 engine and the sound. And if you have a bit of a soft spot, I guess, for Jags. What do you guys think about the looks? I don't know, I'm quite torn about the looks. Like, the lights and certain other aspects look a little bit Ford Falcon-esque. Sorry if I've offended anyone with saying that. But in other areas of the aesthetics, the side profile I think is quite nice to look at. And on Australian roads, when you see so many 3 Series and C-Classes, it stands out in a good way. In driving the car slowly in traffic, I found it to be quite comfortable. The seating position, I mean, it's not too bad. These seats are relatively sporty. They have a bit of side bolstering. But ultimately, again, some of these touch points, like in changing lanes, the indicators, the stalks, they do just feel a little bit not premium enough for a Jag, at least the Jag that I knew. I remember years and years ago when I was a kid, I used to sit in the back of a Jaguar Sovereign, a really super long, luxurious Jaguar Sovereign. And the back seats of that and just everything felt really premium and nice. And I understand that this isn't the large sedan, but it has no sort of hark back to that feeling of the 70s. And yeah. The gear shifts going up are pretty decent. Feels relatively stable under braking. there's not a huge amount of steering feel. You can just hear that supercharger starting to whine. There it is. So we'll put the car into dynamic mode. All right, everything goes red. Second gear. Makes a great sound. I can't say it feels like it's got that much horsepower. It feels about 350 horsepower, 450 Newton meters. I have a feeling this example is tuned, so it might be making 20% more than that. I tell you what would be great, a manual gearbox in this car. Like if you could put a manual gearbox, a 6-speed with this V6, imagine the downshifts though. I'm gonna get you to listen to it in just a second. Oh, you have to get used to this gearbox. I can't say I know this gearbox well yet, so you kind of might get caught out a little bit to not get maximum potential out of it, but it's certainly got some character, that's for sure. So the Jaguar XE S, the supercharged V6. I'm really glad that I drove this thing to experience it, but I can ultimately see why the XE didn't take on that well against its competitors. The engine is certainly a talking point, and for the money, at $40,000 or so, maybe not too bad value, but ultimately not for me. I think I would definitely pick a C63 over one of these, even if they are a fair bit more expensive. This is Driver 88, and we'll see you next time.